a fog rolled over a lake in Italy, hiding an army about to vanish forever. 25,000 Roman soldiers marched confidently forward, unaware death waited silently in the mist. Within 4 hours, almost none of them would walk away from that shoreline alive. This is the story of history's greatest ambush, engineered by one brilliant, ruthless mind. His name was Hannibal Barca, and Rome had never faced an enemy quite like him. In 218 BC, Hannibal marched an army from Spain, crossing the treacherous, frozen Alps. He arrived in Italy with elephants, cavalry, and a burning hatred for Roman power. His father had once made him swear an oath to never befriend Rome. That childhood promise now fueled one of the most audacious invasions in ancient history. Rome quickly learned Hannibal was no ordinary invader they could simply brush aside. At the Trebia River, Hannibal lured Roman legions into a freezing, deadly trap. 20,000 Roman soldiers died there, a devastating blow to Roman military confidence. Rome needed a new commander, someone bold enough to finally stop this Carthaginian menace. They chose Gaius Flaminius, a fiery, popular consul eager to prove his worth. Flaminius was ambitious, impatient, and desperate to defeat Hannibal without waiting for reinforcements. His pride would soon become the deadliest weakness Hannibal could ever exploit. In spring of 217 BC, Hannibal crossed the Apennine Mountains completely undetected by Rome. He marched his army through flooded marshes along the treacherous Arno River. For 4 brutal days, his soldiers marched without proper rest or dry ground. Many men and horses drowned, and Hannibal himself nearly lost sight in one eye. Despite this suffering, Hannibal pushed forward, driven by a singular, calculated purpose. He wanted to bypass Flaminius's army, provoking the consul into reckless, emotional pursuit. Hannibal's forces swept into Etruria, burning villages and slaughtering everyone unfortunate enough to remain. This devastation was deliberate, designed to enrage Flaminius into chasing him blindly. Watching smoke rise over his own countryside, Flaminius could not simply sit still. Against the advice of cautious officers, he ordered his army to pursue immediately. He refused to wait for the Second Roman Army under Servilius Geminus. This decision would prove catastrophic, dooming thousands of soldiers who trusted his judgment. Hannibal, meanwhile, studied the surrounding terrain with the patience of a predator. He found Lake Trasimene, a landscape perfectly shaped for total, inescapable destruction. The northern shore formed a narrow corridor squeezed between steep hills and water. One road entered through a tight defile, then curved along the lake's edge. Beyond that corridor lay an open plain surrounded by forested, rising hillsides. It looked like an open trap, yet appeared completely safe to unsuspecting travelers. Hannibal recognized this immediately as the perfect stage for annihilation. He positioned his heavy African and Spanish infantry directly on the lake shore. This visible camp was meant to look like an ordinary, unprepared encampment. Under cover of darkness, Hannibal moved his remaining forces silently into the hills. Light infantry, cavalry, and allied Gauls hid among the trees and slopes. Every soldier understood the plan required absolute silence and perfect, disciplined timing. By dawn, the entire Roman route was completely surrounded without a single warning. On June 21st, 217 BC, Flaminius ordered his army forward toward Hannibal's visible camp. Thick morning fog rose from the lake, blanketing the entire battlefield in gray. Roman scouts saw nothing unusual, mistaking silence for safety along the narrow road. Flaminius never sent scouts into the hills, a fatal, overconfident oversight. His legions marched in a long, exposed column, stretched dangerously thin along the shore. They believed Hannibal's army remained ahead, still retreating toward the eastern horizon. In reality, thousands of hidden soldiers watched every step from the surrounding slopes. As the Roman column filled the narrow corridor, Hannibal gave the signal. Suddenly, war cries erupted from every direction, shattering the fog's eerie silence. Carthaginian soldiers charged down from the hills, striking the Roman flank instantly. The Romans had no time to organize any real defensive battle formation. Confusion spread rapidly as soldiers realized enemies attacked from multiple, unexpected directions. Some historians say an earthquake struck during the battle, unnoticed amid the chaos. Men fought desperately, unable to see clearly through fog and rising battlefield dust. The lake blocked escape to the south, trapping soldiers against the shoreline. Panicked men waded into the water, weighed down heavily by their armor. Many drowned trying to escape, pulled under by the very gear meant to protect them. Others were cut down mercilessly along the shallow, blood-red waters of the lake. Flaminius himself fought bravely, refusing to abandon his doomed and desperate soldiers. An Insubrian Gaul warrior recognized him and charged forward with brutal, unrelenting fury. Flaminius was killed in the chaos, his body reportedly never properly identified afterward. Without their commander, Roman resistance collapsed into disorganized, hopeless desperation and confusion. A vanguard of about 6,000 soldiers managed to break through the enemy lines. They fled eastward, believing they had somehow escaped the surrounding deadly slaughter. Hannibal sent cavalry after them, refusing to let any survivors slip away easily. By the next morning, this group was completely surrounded and forced to surrender. In total, nearly the entire Roman army of 25,000 men vanished. 15,000 Romans lay dead, while another 15,000 were captured alive. Hannibal reportedly lost fewer than 1,500 men during this entire encounter. It remains one of history's only recorded battles where an army was fully swallowed. Military historian Basil Liddell Hart later called it the greatest ambush ever executed. Another historian noted no other army was ever destroyed this completely by trickery. News of the disaster spread through Rome, triggering absolute panic and disbelief. Citizens gathered in the streets, desperate for information about their missing sons and husbands. Rome had never suffered destruction this total from a single, coordinated military maneuver. Yet Hannibal made a surprising choice that shocked both allies and enemies alike. Instead of marching directly on Rome, he turned toward the eastern coastline. He hoped Roman allies would abandon Rome and join his growing Carthaginian cause. Captured Roman soldiers were killed, but Italian allies were released without ransom. Hannibal wanted alliances to collapse, not just legions to be physically destroyed. However, most Italian towns remained stubbornly loyal to Rome despite his calculated mercy. Assisi refused to surrender, even after Hannibal defeated nearby Roman reinforcements outside its walls. Rome, meanwhile, appointed Quintus Fabius Maximus as dictator to handle the emergency. Fabius adopted a cautious strategy, avoiding direct battles against Hannibal's dangerous forces. This approach earned him the nickname Cunctator, meaning the delayer or the shield. His patience frustrated many Romans hungry for immediate revenge against their enemy. Eventually, impatient consuls abandoned this strategy, choosing direct confrontation the following year. That decision led to Cannae, an even greater disaster for Roman military history. Yet Trasimene remains uniquely terrifying, a masterclass in deception, patience, and terrain warfare. Hannibal didn't rely on superior numbers or overwhelming brute battlefield strength alone. He understood psychology, geography, and human pride better than any Roman commander. Flaminius's arrogance became the very weapon Hannibal used to destroy him completely. The fog, the hills, and the lake became silent, deadly Carthaginian allies. Modern military academies still study Trasimene as a perfect example of ambush warfare. It teaches a timeless lesson about overconfidence, poor scouting, and underestimating clever enemies. Hannibal proved that intelligence and patience can defeat even the mightiest armies. Rome eventually adapted, learning caution from the devastating lessons of that foggy morning. But for one single day, an entire Roman army simply ceased to exist, and Lake Trasimene's still waters forever remember the army that vanished into legend.